we're right around the corner from the election day, and here we are, first big debate.
Oh, it's going to be a big
Yeah,
one.
I mean, look, and if you're wondering why we're so excited, the last debate, Donald Trump ended Joe Biden's presidency. So, the stakes are pretty high.
It turns out these things matter. There's only one thing that they want to accomplish, and that is a Yas Queen moment, right? Where she's like, excuse me, and stops everything, and then everybody's like, look at how strong and presidential she is.
Right.
I mean, that's what they want to do, and in the place of actual substance, because you don't have that.
That's the problem.
And it kind of gets to another strength of his, and that's experience. I don't think there's anybody who's ever run for president who has done more debates than Donald Trump. And he's had good moments and he's had bad moments, and he can learn from mistakes he's made in the past and dial it perfectly for tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
It is debate day. Welcome to the Ruthless Variety program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, John Ashbrook, left to right across your radio dial. We are going to give you everything and more. Everything you've ever hoped for on what's going to happen tonight. I'm excited, fellas.
It's at long last. It feels like we've been waiting forever, but also we're right around the corner from the election day, and here we are, first big debate.
Oh, it's going to be a big
Yeah,
one.
I mean, look, and if you're wondering why we're so excited, the last debate, Donald Trump ended Joe Biden's presidency. So, the stakes are pretty high.
It turns out these things matter.
Yeah.
You had to switch an entire presidential candidate last time.
Look,
we did this.
I didn't know in usually the state environment of a presidential debate that you could have a Mortal Kombat flawless victory. Like full on with the scorpion sequence of ripping out someone's heart.
The finishing move.
The finishing move.
Yeah.
And that's what Donald Trump accomplished last time. And so I just think it's going to be electric. I can't wait for this show.
And just a fact check, Scorpion took the head off. It was Kano that went for the heart. For our listeners who...
Oh, come on.
Deep.
Hey, listen, we're
Nerd.
a fact-based show.
That is a deep
Nerd.
cut
Yeah.
90s
Well, if
video
you know,
game
you know.
reference. That's good. I like the accuracy.
But I think he's right. It is like... It is going to be that, if I can predict it again, but we're going to get into all of that.
We are. Johnny, what's your
It
take?
is. Here's the thing. Kamala has done absolutely nothing publicly. No interviews except for the one. She has been preparing for this moment for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I think that she's going to have more up her sleeve than anybody's expecting.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think that you can just walk past this debate, and which is why the president is taking it so seriously.
well, it's high stakes, no question about it. There is a reason why they manage her external appearances, and that's because she's not terrific at them. Although I will say, if there's one moment that you have to get up for, it might very well be this, because if we're being honest, it might be the only time you see an unproduced Kamala Harris for the rest of this campaign. Like, depending on how this goes, there's a good chance this is it. You're going to get like a bunch of stagecraft.
Well, especially if it goes badly.
Yeah, yeah. Can they switch again? I don't know. I don't know. Last time they wanted this debate.
Well,
they had to switch candidates.
in poker, you can only discard and draw again once. Yeah. So, I mean, those are the rules. You can't switch again. But I mean, look, I think we're joking about all of this because historically she is so bad at this stuff, and she was bad in the debates in the Democratic primary in 2020. The bar is super low, and she's gonna clear that because the alternative was Joe Biden, who couldn't complete a sentence. So at a baseline, she is going to succeed in the mainstream media will seal clap all night about how great she is.
By comparison to Joe Biden,
By
for
comparison.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, she will be able to follow the conversation
Right.
at a minimum, which I think is, whether she answers
If she can
circularly
speak
or not.
above a whisper, she's checked a box.
But to your point, the mainstream media is going to call that a victory.
Yeah.
No matter what she does, they're going to call it a victory.
They 100%. I also say this, one note of caution for people who are enthusiastic about this, and I think the chances of this going well for Donald Trump are good. I think if they got a game plan, they execute it, they can do well here because this is not She's not terrific at this. But I will say, if history is your guide on Kamala Harris, she presents well the first time you see her. The problem is every time after that, right? When she ran for president, the first week or two of her campaign, everybody was like, well, she's probably going to be the nominee. She raised hand over fist money. Everybody was like, wow, look at this talent on the scene. Everybody's excited about it. Problem is in like the months to follow, every issue, and then we've seen this now over the last couple of weeks that we've talked about on the program, every issue that she has to deal with, she doesn't know anything about. She doesn't know how to comport answers that fit sort of what it is that she's supposed to believe. And the more you're exposed to that, the more you're absolutely convinced she has no conviction on this stuff whatsoever.
Because it's hard to change your opinion and justify it when you didn't understand your original position in the first place.
Exactly.
Makes things difficult.
It makes it very, very difficult. And I would agree with you. She does present well in the beginning. She will, I expect, do pretty well for the first 10 minutes of this debate.
Yeah.
But then once we get into the back and forth and the questioning and but you changed your position and why and explain that is going to be more difficult for her. That happened to her in the Democratic primary in 2020, and Tulsi Gabbard ripped her face off.
Yeah, we're going to see that and a lot more here in the next hour. But let me just show you, to set the ground, here are the rules for the debate. Graphic one, if you wouldn't mind, Spaghettis. Candidates will have 2-minute answers to questions, 2-minute rebuttals, and an extra 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. That's a good amount of time, to be honest with you. You see a lot of debates that are more restrictive than that, which I think is pretty good for Trump here. Like, he's going to be able to get a word in, not going to have to take a shot from her and not be able to provide an answer.
I mean, Democrats really just must be thrilled that now they have a candidate who could actually fulfill all of those prerequisites of the campaign strategy. You know what I mean? Like the idea that Joe Biden could have done 2 whole minutes and then a rebuttal and then responses.
He forgot the question was.
I mean, he'd have a coronary on stage.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember in that debate, they had to tell them they had more time because Donald Trump would use his time and then Joe Biden would talk for 10 seconds and lose his breath because it was so
was
whispery.
Doing what Smug always talked about, was like, anyway.
Anyways. Yeah, I really hope somehow Kamala finds a way to be like, I'm actually good at golf. Because I want to see that again.
Oh, dude, the golf. We need to bring that back. The second rule of the debate, candidates' microphones will be live only when the candidate whose turn it is to speak, and muted when the time belongs to another candidate. This became somewhat of a consternation. The Biden campaign, as you recall, negotiated all of these things themselves in the hopes that Donald Trump would say no to the debate, and then he didn't, and these things all kind of ended up working out for Trump. So Harris is like, no, let's open the mics. We want, because what they're hoping to invite, and the reason that's a big deal, is if you are managing a campaign of Kamala Harris, what you're hoping to have happen is for Donald Trump to talk over top of her. So you can roll out the whole like mansplaining thing, and you can roll out the whole like he's rude, this, that, and the other, as if they're not like two equals on stage.
That's like, this was in full swing when she was debating Mike Pence previously, where he'd be like, and that's what I think. She's like, I'm speaking.
Yeah,
I'm speaking. He's like, go ahead. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm speaking.
They'll do that. Yeah. They'll do that a million times tonight.
That's the 100%. She wants to make that a whole thing of like, I'm speaking. And it's the lamest play ever,
Yeah, it's just
and it's 100% why they wanted to have the mics on.
It's a manufactured moment for them to put a video up on TikTok, and
There's only one thing that they want to accomplish, and that is a Yas Queen moment, right? Where she's like, "Excuse me," and stops everything, and then everybody's like, "Ah! Look at how strong and presidential she is!"
Right.
I mean, that's what they want to do. And in the place of actual substance, because she doesn't have that.
That's the problem.
She didn't have that. So she wants this TikTok moment.
Yeah.
So that's why this whole microphone thing was, and we'll get into how they've remedied that.
Did you see last week that somebody close to her campaign described the internal feeling about this microphone issue, that they were morose about these rules developments?
Morose.
They're so dramatic about these little technicalities because they're going for the manufacturer moment. They know
Yep.
that's all she can do. If they start doing a 2-minute on the duality of democracy and time and everything,
over.
That probably happens tonight.
Well, that's her default. So they're trying to manufacture 3 sound bites and a Yas Queen. That's what they're doing.
To
That's the
overshadow
game plan.
the default.
That's it.
So
So the news highlights the next day are the 3 one-liners and the Yas Queen to say, wow, what a miraculous debate for this very strong candidate. That's it.
That's right.
Because if they actually talk about like tax policy, environmental policy, energy policy, foreign policy, any of those things, she's going to be like a deer in headlights.
Yep.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the first fucking clue about any of it. So anyway, the next is candidates will not be permitted to ask questions of each other. Interested to hear how they actually enforce that.
That's the thing, is that's not happening. They're
Yeah.
going to ask each other questions all night.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask a question and they don't answer and it's on TV, good luck to you.
Yeah.
It sounds like a total Kamala campaign red line, because nobody's allowed to ask her questions. The press isn't allowed. The staff isn't allowed. You're not supposed to question their anointed communist queen.
And that's the thing, is it's very specific why they don't want to. It's like Holmes was saying, is because if she has to explain her policy, she's cooked.
It's done.
It's over.
It's done.
I mean, he should. Trump should ask
100%.
questions, even just rhetorically, in
Yep.
his ability to respond to whatever she says, because you can't rely on the media, you can't rely on moderators necessarily to ask the question framed the right way.
Yeah, I think that's right. The next is campaign staff may not interact with candidates during commercial breaks. That's probably I would say, a logistical must, considering the fact that there are 75 fucking people that have been advising Kamala Harris on like an interview. I mean, I'm not sure that there's enough room in the Constitution Center in Philadelphia to actually get the people who are advising her on stage to discuss things during a break. So that's probably a good logistical thing. Moderators will seek to enforce timing agreements and ensure a civilized discussion.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with all that. And there will be no audience in the room. Again, that was a Biden prerequisite for the first one. They know that Trump feeds off of crowds. They know that he feeds off of the interaction with crowds. And they know he's funny extemporaneously when he gets an audience reaction to things. And they don't want that.
That's the thing, is it's circular. Like Trump feeds off their energy, and he also energizes crowds. Like the whole moment where he ended Hillary when he was like, because you'd be in jail, you audibly heard the entire audience be like, oh.
Well, so and it works on 2 levels. Like, it's psychologically devastating for the other candidate to see the crowd support what your opponent said. And then it also, to the crowd at home watching, seeing the crowd respond, is like, maybe this guy has a point.
Yeah.
You know? And so knowing that Donald Trump can do that, you got to take that advantage away from him.
Totally. And he's also like a cultural icon. Like I've said many times, the reason that Donald Trump can walk into like an 80% Democratic diner and get a good reception is not necessarily all those people are voting for him. It's like if Harrison Ford walked in.
Yep.
Right? It's like the most famous person in the world. You're like, wow, this person just walked in. That's the aura that follows Donald Trump. With that aura also comes like town halls and debate settings. And Kamala Harris doesn't have that. So like he would get a benefit of the doubt from even a stacked crowd just by being like, wow, I can't believe Donald Trump is here.
And somewhat as an aside, isn't it pathetic that Democrats who try to act like, oh, we're the party of democracy and the little man, they don't want to let voters in the room see this with their own eyes? That's pathetic.
Of course not. But as we found out, democracy is very negotiable.
Oh, yeah,
when
100%.
their power is on the line. The debate is going to be 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. The 2 seated moderators are David Murr and Lindsey Davis. They'll be the only ones asking questions, so they're not going to do like the flip to somebody online or whatever. A coin flip was held virtually on Tuesday, September 3, to determine the podium placement. Former President Donald Trump won the coin toss and chose to select the order of statements. The former president will offer the last closing statement. Very smart selection. Harris will do the first, and she has selected the right podium. Interesting. The right podium. That seems to be what she's doing in her campaign right now, too, is trying to switch off the left-hand side over to the right. Candidates are going to be introduced by the moderators. The candidates will enter upon introduction from opposite sides of the stage. The incumbent party will be introduced first. So that's Harris. No opening statements, no closing statements. Closing statements will be 2 minutes. I'm sorry. There will be closing statements. There'll be 2 minutes per candidate. They're going to be behind podiums, as I said. Props or pre-written notes are not allowed on stage. It's a shame for Kamala Harris, who I'm sure would love a big foam finger and a notepad full of answers. She will get neither. No topics or questions will be shared in advance. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. Candidates will be given a pen, a pad of paper, and a bottle of water.
Are there any restrictions on earpieces where John Podesta is able to beam in exactly what he wants her to say?
Candidates' microphones will be live only. It is not anything about the earpieces, but that's an excellent question. Can they actually zone in to somebody who knows the answer to the question?
What about emails from Donna Brazil?
Yeah.
You know, maybe we can throw those in the spam folder.
Maybe my sense is they probably cut her email if they're being justified. You recall she was a CNN analyst and at one point had given debate questions to
the Clinton campaign.
That Clinton campaign?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that got her fired from CNN, but
Collusion.
It certainly hasn't gotten her fired from Democratic politics. He quoted her on Tuesday.
I mean, I feel like I still see her on television.
Yeah, she's still around. She's still around.
It's weird. They got their own rules.
Yeah, it's their own thing.
What a country.
Democracy.
So anyway, I mean, look, that's basically the whole thing. As I said, it's Constitution Center in Philadelphia, obviously an incredibly important state. We saw CNN polls come out this week that showed it deadlocked. Advertising is at a premium there right now.
It's not fun watching TV.
Campaign. I mean, if you're watching broadcast or cable, boy, oh boy, you're going to get your fill over the next 60 days. It's been incredible. So we thought one of the things that we'd do, just give you a little flavor for how people have participated in these debates. You've probably seen some of this stuff, but it's worth a refresher course before we see the two candidates on stage tonight. First is this is during Kamala's 2019 presidential run. Tulsi Gabbard
I love this clip.
decided to do the country a favor and basically just end all of this here and now. In clip one, if you wouldn't mind queuing that up, Spaghetts.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Granted, it's a Democratic primary. Not all. I mean, there's some of the things she was saying. I was like, oh, cheap labor for felons. That doesn't seem so bad. No, but, they don't see that. Anyway, it was a tumultuous moment for the Harris campaign. She had been working back at that law officer type thing. And Tulsi decided, who was, more or less a libertarian, which she kind of is now. That was her opening, and it was a real drive-by.
And the thing is that also exposes such an Achilles heel for Kamala, because she has tried to have it both ways. When she was in California, she let tons of criminals out, but at the same time, she's like, well, I also have to keep some criminals in. So depending on whether I'm in a Democrat primary or if I'm in a general, or I have to be able to play both sides of it. So she's been, by her own admission, a flip-flopper her entire political career.
That's a great point.
Totally. I mean, again, it goes back to the no core convictions.
Yep.
You simply are trying to reflect back whatever you think the political constituency is, and she's running a Democratic primary. It may have been that debate or another where she was like, we should never put an illegal alien in jail.
And the biggest...
You know what I mean? You're like, That's some tough on crime stuff.
The biggest problem when you're this like gutless, cynical person like Kamala Harris who believes in nothing is that by trying to have it both ways, you end up with no actual support. Like no one in this country is voting for Kamala Harris because they're like, you know what? I agree with her on XYZ policy. I like that she did XYZ because every single thing she's done, she's also done the opposite and says she supports one thing and then says supports the other thing. It's just she has no core conviction.
Yeah. If you think she's going to bring any sort of reform or change out of her mind of Kamala Harris, you are sorely mistaken. That is not going to happen. The second clip here is a famous one and one that we talk about on the program all the time. Actually, where she may have solidified, ironically enough, her vice presidential nod from Joe Biden here in clip 2.
We've also heard, and I'm going to now direct this at Vice President Biden, I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
So it shows like when you pre-package.
That's it.
Powerful personal story, terrible delivery. Terrible delivery.
The whole wind-up.
I mean,
she can
horrible.
never just say the word.
She can't just say the thing.
3 words that mean the same thing in order to get to the thing.
Well, and also trying to bank shot it off of like him talking about Bird and stuff. Like lose that part. Nobody cares, and you're not mentioning it so much that anybody who's watching is going to know the reference.
Totally.
Just say the busing thing.
Say the busing thing.
Say the busing thing. But she can't. It always has to be overcomplicated. It's like she could just draw a straight line, but instead it goes wiggle.
And then,
you know,
further to the point of how manufactured that was, is within minutes of that, the campaign rolled out "That Little Girl Was Me" T-shirts with a photo of Kamala as a kid. It was the most, again, so cynical.
You know she's going to do the exact same thing tomorrow. They're going to have T-shirts with whatever the prepackaged statement that she delivers is going to be. And she's going to shoehorn it into whatever part of the conversation she wants. It's not necessarily going to fit the context of what Trump says. She's just going to say, oh, I have to say that thing because of the T-shirt.
No, it's gumball in, gumball out.
Yeah.
These are the words that I need to say. I'm going to say them.
So I'm really glad we played this clip. And Ashbrook, I 100% agree with you. Like, they're going to have some merch spun up for I'm speaking or whatever. But I do think there are probably, like you were saying, 2 Holmes, 3 like sound bites they're trying to get out of this. And like the one is the wind up she does on her bio being like, I was a prosecutor. I know criminals like Donald Trump. I know sex offenders. I know business cheats, and I know Donald Trump. Like that whole thing.
Yeah, that's good.
That's going to be one she's definitely going to do. I'm curious what you guys think are some of the other ones.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I would, if I were her, exercise a little bit of caution on that, because I think the critical thing when you have a debate is, believe it or not, there's some persuadable voters out there. And as the polling has shown, after Trump's convictions, a lot of folks were like, you know what, I see this as a lawfare thing.
Yeah, it's political.
Complete political thing. So when she brings up those things, it goes straight into that strength of, yes, you're right. I am a victim of political persecution.
Right.
So that's the danger for her in that.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Look, the only thing that I know is going to happen, because if it's on a policy issue, like, I don't know anything that she's going to say that's going to make any sense. She's going to have her canned whatever, but it's like, it's unpredictable. The only thing I absolutely know is going to happen is at some point there will be a contentious moment in the debate, probably that she starts with something like you suggested, and Trump will have something to say as a rebuttal, and she will definitely do the I'm talking. She will definitely make a big show over her willingness to confront the bully.
Yeah.
Because what needs to happen for Harris to survive this debate is for people to say, like, she's strong, which nobody thinks she is, and she's assertive, which nobody thinks she is, or she probably would have done something over the last 4 years about all the policy issues that she said she hates, or she can stand up to Donald Trump.
She needs, as the kids would say, she needs to be able to clap back.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the Democrats didn't care that Joe Biden's brain was pudding. They cared that their position looked weak opposite Donald Trump.
That's
and
it,
that
that's
he
it.
couldn't defend their ideas.
And that's what the 48% of Democrats need to have happen. So that's what they need to deliver. Policy be damned. I mean, she could just do a 10-80 on every single issue, and they'd be like, that's fine, as long as she was
Perfect.
like a Yas Queen moment.
Orange man bad.
Orange
don't
man
care.
bad. Yeah.
Brad Summer.
Totally.
Ashbrook, what do you think?
I hear what you're saying, Smug. I don't think she's going to be able to resist the temptation. She's got so many people in her ear that are saying, put him in a body bag. He said Hillary belongs in jail. He said lock her up, and you got to have your lock him up moment. And I think she's going to overplay her hand. I think she feels like she needs to overcompensate for all of the weaknesses Holmes laid out.
Yeah.
I think those are two. I mean, I could see it honestly going either way. Like, I do think she's overcoached by these people. A lot of them still Biden people who like have bad political instincts in the first place. Otherwise, they wouldn't have run an octogenarian with a brain of pudding. But I could see that. If they're smart, I think they would do what Smug suggests, which is like take the high road on some of that stuff, because it really has turned off so much of the electorate who already see our politics as corrupt.
Yeah. No, I agree. It'll be interesting to see which pathway she takes. Those are the two. But the Yas Queen thing is happening. That one's definitely happening. All right, so let's get a little flavor for Trump here. As you recall, you've probably seen all of these, but clip 3 was from the last debate that you've seen him in that I thought was just put a nice little punctuation mark on the entire thing and probably ended the career of Joe Biden. Go ahead.
I've changed the law. What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. All he had to do was leave it.
The look on Biden's face is priceless.
You know, which
It was
like
such a massacre.
it's such a massacre, and it's sort of related, I think, to the idea of Kamala doing this ham-fisted. I was a prosecutor. I know people like Donald Trump. I know tax cheats or whatever. However, she's going to do the wind-up. But like, there was an art to the subtlety.
Yeah.
That Donald Trump understands.
Yes.
Like, he could have said, Joe Biden, this man has dementia. Yeah. But instead of saying that,
it's like, I don't know what he said.
He's like, it speaks for itself.
I think you just let it lie.
You know, you let it lie.
Yeah.
Michael, I think that among all of Donald Trump's strengths, one of his top ones, I think he's just an excellent conversationalist.
Yeah.
He can read the person he's interacting with, and he knows what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it goes too far, but in most cases, he's a guy that responds in a way that you should respond in some sort of a situation.
I mean, it is commentator Trump, like the man on the couch next to you being like, can you believe this shit?
Yeah.
Like, when he breaks that fourth wall
That's
and he
his
speaks
magic.
plainly, it just, people understand it.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
For his opponents, it is dangerous because being able to connect. I mean, he's had such a long career in the public eye.
Yeah.
And has perfectly honed this ability to connect to audiences that if his opponents let that happen, it's the worst position they could be in.
Yeah, I mean, what you hope for out of the Trump campaign is that there's a strategic quality to implement what you're just talking about now. It's like, let the debate come to you a little bit. Don't have a sort of pre-planned, pre-buttal for all of these things. Don't jump ugly. Like he did that. He executed it perfectly on this last debate. 2020, not so much.
Yep.
Like it really angered him. Biden really angered him.
Right.
And of course, we all know, like in the first debate with the COVID stuff happening and everything, there may have been other pieces of that ultimately.
Well, I think it probably angered him because he was the one having to do the job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's there as the pandemic's going down, and this guy Joe Biden is saying he would do better. He would have done. Oh, he would have shut out China. He would have closed down all the flights.
Yeah.
The Democrats who were celebrating Chinese New Year, Nancy Pelosi in the streets in San Francisco saying it's all safe. The Democrats who didn't cancel their primary or caucuses, and then suddenly 2 weeks later were like, actually, Donald Trump caused this virus.
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
Yeah.
And then you got to stand on stage with a guy, Joe Biden, who can barely speak, and he's saying he would run the country.
I
better.
mean, it drove him to the moon.
It would make me so mad.
And
This is also why I'm not a politician.
Yeah. Right.
Hair trigger.
It did, and he just sort of ran over Joe Biden, which at that point exercised some thoughts about what you thought of the personal character and conduct of the two candidates that ultimately weren't all that helpful to him. We saw a total correction of that in June.
Yep.
And a perfectly executed game plan that, I mean, to my knowledge, is the only time that actually ended a political career on a debate stage.
Yeah.
And so, like, if he can have that again, I kind of don't care what Kamala Harris does. Like, his execution of a strategy that is similar to that is gold for Donald Trump.
And it kind of gets to another like strength of his, and that's experience. I don't think there's anybody who's ever run for president who has done more debates than Donald Trump. And he's had good moments and he's had bad moments, and he can learn from mistakes he's made in the past and dial it perfectly for tonight.
Yeah, he's an 80% or above on the good moments.
I have
to
one-
be clear.
I
His
have-
debates have been exceptional, with the exception of the Biden
And
2020
when you
stuff.
say experience, it was like in 2016 alone, he had what, like 20 debates
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Republican
Just destroyed
primary,
us.
where he was just
Strafing.
like one at a time chopping every Republican.
I have one prepackaged thing I'd want Donald Trump to do.
Oh, let's hear it.
Because you know she's going to do the I'm speaking thing.
Yeah.
And he should just be like, Kamala, you're speaking, but you're not saying anything.
Because it would be true.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. What would be your advice, everyone here at the desk, to the Trump campaign for this debate?
Well, I think that you have to let the debate come to you. I think the idea that he needs to prosecute a case beyond what has already been obvious over the last 3 weeks, that she has fundamentally changed everything that she believes in via spokesperson, that she will not do any extemporaneous discussion with voters or the media, that she is somehow hiding from the fact that she's a sitting vice president and is responsible for all that ails this country currently. Like, all of that stuff is in there, packaged up. What you don't need to do is jump all over the top of her to express it. You can use your time for that very thing. Look, the contrast of, like, the economy, for example. Americans already buy it. Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about her record. You talk a little bit about energy policy. You talk a little bit about her record, and then maybe add the fact that, like, nobody really knows where she is because, you know, in the last week and a half through spokespeople, she's tried to adopt many of my positions. You know, it just shows the weakness of her candidacy with the subtlety and directness of it, rather than getting into this big, contentious back and forth, which I think advantages Kamala. She wants to have the Biden 2020 experience. She wants an irate, angry Donald Trump who is pissed that he has to share the stage with someone he has such little respect for. That's what they want to have come through the camera. If he can prevent that, that is a stone cold winner from my standpoint.
I think that is very smart, and far be it from me to make any recommendations for the master, because he is going to be far and away, I feel like, the best Republican debater that we have right now. One variation I would suggest on Duncan's idea about how to respond to her, you know, the inevitable moment where she says, I'm speaking, is I think he can say, well, which Kamala is speaking? Is it the candidate who pretends to care about the border, or is it the vice president who opened it the day she got into office and let millions of people into here?
Yeah, which brings a good point to Smug's question, is like, what should Donald Trump, you know, accomplish in this debate? I think Holmes is right. Like, you got to hammer those issues. You got to hammer energy, economy, border,
Flip-flop.
crime. Yeah. you can't let Kamala become the change agent.
Yep.
You got to connect her to Biden and remind people she is currently vice president of the United States.
Yep.
If you're angry about anything,
Yeah.
look at my
Look at her. Every time she's complaining about something happening in our country, she's responsible for it.
Yeah.
And when she says she's going to change something, why didn't you do it for the last 3.5
Yeah,
years?
too many people are paying too high prices
Yeah.
for their houses. Okay.
So Donald Trump,
So what'd you do about it?
as change agent, is why he was so successful in 2016. The American people wanted disruption. And that's why it was harder for him to run as an incumbent. And so he has to re-seize that at this debate.
Right.
And then the third thing I would say
That's a really good point.
is for those persuadable voters who have been otherwise unmoved by cable news and the headlines that they see, or Kamala's flip-flopping or her record, you're going to have to find a way to personalize the problems of their life and connect it to the people in Pennsylvania, where you're in Philadelphia at this debate.
Yeah.
And, when you're talking about the economy, put it in real terms that people understand.
Yeah, for example, just take the fracking thing, which we talked about a lot. You're talking to people in Pennsylvania. Granted, it's the other side of the state, but you're talking to all Americans. But for people who make their living either directly in that industry or as ancillary jobs that support people in that industry, the number is like 400,000 people. It's a massive number. If you were to suggest that, like, look, you don't have to take my word for it. You can take her word for it. But if you're going to now follow her into a position where she says she's no longer supporting what she said she was supporting, you're taking a pretty big risk, aren't you? Like, my position. I executed it over 4 years. And we did great. You produced more oil and gas at any point in our country's history under my administration. Here's a woman who said she would ban it. Now she says she won't ban it. Who do you think you're going to trust on that?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Who are you going to trust on that?
Yeah, who are you going to trust on the border? This woman who uses my wall in her commercials, or me, the person who built it?
Who built that wall?
Yeah.
Who reversed all of the policies that I put in place that actually stemmed the flow of immigration into this country on day one of her
Could we just
administration.
get Donald Trump in here for a quick murder board?
Yeah, I mean, we do these.
That's what they're called, viewer and listener murder boards.
Yeah.
And touching on what Duncan said, I think the number one thing is there's been research done on viewers of debates, and they come away with one takeaway from each person on that stage. Where, like you said, in that first debate between Trump and Biden, they came away with Trump angry, right?
Yeah.
The one takeaway he needs to ensure voters get is that Kamala is the incumbent, that she is currently in office, that throughout this entire administration, she is the person who has caused all these problems and sense of dissatisfaction among Americans. That's probably the main reason she doesn't want any questions.
And leave it up to people's
it points out.
interpretation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Right.
one of two things. Either she's just like a silent patsy who doesn't believe in anything and goes along with whatever everybody else wants to say, which is, a hell of a thing to have sitting behind the Resolute desk when you're dealing with international wars. Or she's somebody who believes in all that stuff and work to try to get it done. One of those two things is true. Leave it up to the voter to decide which one they think is applied to her. But either one are devastating in the context of a general election.
Because the media's done everything they can to try to, give voters a sense of amnesia that, well, Kamala's new. She's never had anything to do with this administration. To me, that's the most critical thing Trump needs to do, is let every voter know, hey, remember, Kamala is running this administration since Joe Biden's at the beach, and she's responsible for all these horrible policies.
Can I ask you guys, I think for Kamala, there is a number of questions that she's going to get, many of which she got with Dana Bash on CNN about her changing her positions. Maybe she'll have adapted that answer a little bit. With Trump, it's a little less clear on many of them. But is there one area that you think they're going to go in on that they really have to think about how they answer the question?
Abortion.
There you go. That was my thing, because there's been this consternation. Every policy issue other than abortion fits in the 51% Trump support area. Abortion is the exception to that. He has staked out a pretty nuanced place in terms of like ideological conservative dogma. And there's been some discussion about it on the right and amongst pro-life advocates or whatever. And then they asked him subsequently whether he was going to support or oppose a ballot initiative in Florida on DeSantis' 6-week abortion ban. And then I think he said he would, despite the fact that he said it was not something that he would support or do. And so it seems to me that that's the only area that is not clear about where Trump is, that I think he's going to get more than one question on. Don't you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, number one, just correct the record here on Roe itself in a way that Republicans, I think, have done a bad job at sort of like laying the groundwork here. We've sort of like surrendered on Roe itself as a decision. And Donald Trump does this well, and I've heard him say this many times. But like he will say, like, legal scholars across the spectrum, liberals, thought this was a bad decision. So we got rid of Roe and returned it to the states so your elected legislators could make a decision. Right. That is what I did. And I did that for the pro-life movement.
It also turns out that's
Americans.
what democracy is,
right,
too, which
right.
is like a strange position.
Like that the Supreme Court isn't supposed to make laws out of whole cloth.
Which also unmasks the entire left and how they view the courts.
I thought he handled the issue pretty well in the first debate with Joe Biden.
Very well.
He talked about exceptions, and he said, look, I believe in exceptions. And there aren't enough Republicans who emphasize that in debates right now. And I feel like if he just replicates in tonight's debate what he did against Joe Biden, he checks the box.
He also did a great thing in June when he talked about that exceptions thing. He also spoke about it in a way that say, look, I got a lot of friends who disagree with that. I have a lot of friends who their moral and religious views lead them to a different position, and I totally respect that. As president, this is my view. Which, again, there's not a lot of issues that you need to buffer, to provide an understanding for, and then state your position. This is one of them, right? The best politicians that I've ever worked with have provided a rationale for the situation that they find themselves in and then delivered a clear policy position on this issue, on the issue of abortion. And he's done that. So I agree. If he continues to do that, that's great. But I know that's going to be one that they're going to push on. How do you square the circle on these multiple things? Because there's nothing else. There's nothing else in his policy record where he's like, I now support this. Because people all support that. Like if you're the ABC crew and you're looking like, how do we take down Donald Trump? It's basically like, all right, do we do Jan 6? We're going to push him on whether he'll accept the election results. We're going to push him on the issue of abortion. What else are we going to push him on? Because he's just going to tell you what he's already told people for the last now 8 years. Right?
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
I mean, that's it. And then you hope that there's this moment where they get back and forth and yes, Queen.
Yep.
That's it.
That's
like
the hope.
that's the whole thing. If you're ABC, you're like, these are the three things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Look,
That's it.
I think there's a risk to Democrats if ABC perseverates too much on those points. If they're talking Jan 6,
Don't you think that's
going to
happen? They can't help themselves.
They can't help themselves, but I think there's a risk to Democrats if they do, because they are perceived by the middle of this country now. It's not just the right, but by the middle of this country, they are perceived as in the bag for Kamala. And these are people who are like, prices are too high. The border is something can't you do something about the border? And so if they are talking about things that are aside from those two top, clearly high polling issues with the center of the electorate, I really think that Kamala suffers from that, because Trump is so good at setting himself up against the media and the Democrats together as a conglomerate that are fighting against the people.
But he's going to need to bolster that the post-election 2020 thing again. He did a nice job in June.
Yeah.
But he was also helped by the fact that he was debating an invalid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like A Place for Mom had the beeper going off, and they were ready to haul his ass off stage and give him some pudding. And so there was never any follow-up. She'll do that. She'll try to jump ugly on that stuff and try to nail him down on accepting the vote.
And you know what would be very good for him to say? Nope, you're right. You're the vice president here, and that's the problem.
Yeah, right.
You're in office, and that's why this country's gone to shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he can just pivot from the election results and will you accept them and what do you think about the vote and voter integrity and all that stuff directly to the result and the consequences of Kamala being in office.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
That's a really, really good one. We have one more clip that we want to show because it's a deep cut back to 2016, and you can't do any kind of Trump debate clips without showing this one. Go ahead and clip 4, Spaghetts.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
And that's why they won't allow a studio audience.
That's it right there.
That's it.
They went nuts.
He might as well have just dropped it and walked off the back of the stage. at
Debate's
that point.
over.
You know?
It's also like what an incredible misreading of the electorate that Hillary Clinton thought she could win that election on temperament. Like the American people were angry.
They were as pissed as he was.
Check their temperament. When she's goes into that DNC convention saying America is already great, people didn't feel like it was great. Like she misread the mood of the country dramatically. It's incredible. Worst political instincts in history, Hillary Clinton.
And we've spent a lot of time talking about Kamala's one-liners and the merch they're going to sell. This guy can land a one-liner too. And he doesn't need 37,000 staffers to come up with it for him.
Yeah.
He just knows it in the moment and delivers it in the moment because he understands conversation.
Again, like one of Biden's cooked moments in their debate was when he was like, and finally beat Medicare. And he's like, beat it to death. It's like, he is just quick with it. And that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, totally. Just to put a capstone on all of this, ABC the Associated Press put out an interesting article where they quoted a Harris campaign official who spoke on the condition of anonymity so that they're safely within the confines of the 75 advisors who have been in discussions about this debate to discuss the planning around the debate. So the candidate who repeatedly interrupts will receive a warning from the moderator. And both candidates' microphones may be unmuted if there is significant crosstalk so the audience can understand what's happening. I have since also found out that there will be a press pool close enough to the stage who can hear both candidates if the microphone is muted and they can report what it is that the candidate said. So, and that was their concession to the Harris campaign. So like what I was talking about in terms of what they're trying to manufacture here is exactly, well, they just said it. They just said it. What they're trying to do is provoke Donald Trump to a point where he says something that they deem offensive that they can get the press to run out and say, how offensive? And she can have her Yas Queen moment.
You know that the campaign has already reached out to every member of that press pool and said, sit on Twitter, stand by, and get ready.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's what we need you to put out and wait for the moment, fire it.
So the mics are muted until Kamala needs them to be unmuted.
There it is.
And it is not, by the way, without part of the strategy that goes into Democratic debate discussions to try to use the media and the moderator as the ultimate arbiter of who's winning and losing real time, right? You remember the Candy Crowley situation with Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, where she said, like in real time, she said, well, that's not right to Mitt Romney about something was objectively right and correct. But you've got an independent voice then interjecting to an audience of 30 million that he's lying to them when in fact he was not. That's what this is. That's what this is. Interrupts will receive a warning to from the moderator. Okay, so if that's in the rules, what they're hoping happens is that one of these two moderators, David Murr or Lindsay Davis, gets to a point where they're going to interject their own opinion about what's over the top or not, which way that's going to land.
Yes. Yep. And we've seen that recently on a Sunday morning show where you had a moderator straight up lie and say, well, Kamala Harris was also there with those families, those Gold Star families.
Yeah,
just
and it
made it up.
Just wasn't. Just absolute, objectively false. Anyway, so that brings us to our question of the day. Who's going to win this thing?
Yeah.
Who's going to win the debate? Do you worry about it? Do you think this is a real opportunity? Give us your thoughts, real time. Get this thing in early. Like when you see this thing, put it in so you can be a genius.
Yeah.
when this debate goes live tonight, and you can have a discussion. We can all have a discussion, and we're going to read all of them as we always do. When we come back from our break, we're going to read our question of the day from last Thursday, which is, will Trump be able to regain the lead in the polls based on some things that we talked about that were happening? Your comments were very instructive on what you were seeing at home, and we're going to get to all of that right after this.
Cyber attacks are on the rise, with corporate megastores falling victim to data breaches that expose your private information. Now these same megastores are lobbying D.C. politicians to pass the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill will leave you even more vulnerable to credit card cyber attacks, while Walmart and Target pocket billions in additional profit. Don't let them get away with it. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
All right, so the question of the day from last Thursday was based on a bunch of polling that we went through and discussions in the week last week. Will Trump be able to regain the lead? Is this a moment where she starts to backslide? A lot of great comments. As always, we read through all of them. Spaghetts and Wolf have curated their own sort of representational pieces of that that we will read now. We always start with the voice.
And what we always say is like and subscribe if you wish to opine. The first comment comes from B. Foster. B. Foster writes, I think Trump will regain the lead because the situation is the same as it was with Biden. The more she speaks, the more the truth about her is revealed. Trump will regain the lead after the debate. He showed during the Biden debate that he's capable of discipline, and the more we hear Harris talk, the more her cognitive dysfunction will be exposed. She simply doesn't have the mental acuity to convincingly defend her record where it benefits her, to distance herself from it where it doesn't, and to show the people she's a real leader who can stand on her own 2 feet and provide solutions to some very real challenges facing our nation. I just don't see how she does 90 minutes alone without severely damaging herself.
It's just so smart.
That is really sharp.
It's just so smart. I mean, that's it. We're pretty cynical in that we think that they can package something together to try to make her seem smart. But the underlying point that B. Foster has here is entirely correct.
Nailed it.
The more she's on stage, the more she's talking, the more you as a voter will look at that and be like, what?
Yep.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, think about how much damaging video is out there from Kamala Harris running in a Democratic primary for 4 months.
I mean, we did 2 years
know?
of commentary as her vice president. We led the show when we used to do that.
Like, undoubtedly, there's going to be a clip from this debate that is very damaging for Kamala Harris.
There's just no question about
No question.
Comment 2, the old man.
Yes, and this is from Lisa Marie. I think this is probably the Lisa Marie from Twitter. Good friend of the program. Dem voters are waking up to the reality that they are in the same situation as they were with Biden, only slightly better, and that Kamala is not walking dead. So Trump's lead has been reclaimed and may get near to where he was pre-swapped out. I'm curious what's in store for October, when this election has had boring weeks bigger than most October surprises.
Yeah.
On the right, there's definitely potential for a big reveal for Walz or even Harris, since neither had real vetting. I don't know what the left has other than sentencing, but any jail time for Trump is absolutely election interference by the state. Crazy times.
Yeah. Dude, again, you guys are the smartest people in the world. That is exactly right. Very good analysis. Comment 3, Smugglesworth.
I got it right here. This is from Mindy M. And she writes, I do think Kamala's trajectory has plateaued. Every time she trots out a poorly conceived policy, it sinks like a stone, even in the legacy media. The joy is tarnished. She didn't look particularly joyful in CNN's gentle bath. She looked hunched over and miserable as she tried her best to thread the needles her advisors told her to thread. With the teleprompter-only strategy, there just isn't any substance there for independent voters to grab onto. In the debate, she's going to have that pissed off look on her face, and it won't play well. this is starting to feel like the first election I voted in, Reagan in 1980. They said Reagan was a stupid actor who could never win. Wrong. Love the show. Keep them coming. Dead on.
And if you love the show, and especially if you love the analysis we gave in the first 45 minutes of the program today, do us a favor really quickly. Send it to your friends.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
so
do
they
it.
can watch it for the debate.
Yeah, it's important. We got to all get on the same page. Like and subscribe. That's how everybody sees it.
Yep.
There's
It matters a lot.
There's
It really does help.
algorithmic stuff that we don't control that you could do by liking and subscribing. So we appreciate that. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, after a long hiatus, we will return to King of the Hill. We'll get to it right after this.
Folks, let me tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity, America's largest grassroots organization. Americans for Prosperity is out there every day fighting for you. Their goal? Reignite the American dream. AFP's priorities are simple: secure the border, end inflation, make energy more affordable. And AFP gets results the old-fashioned way, through grassroots activism. They bring together like-minded conservatives, turning them into a grassroots army, and defeating the left's terrible big government agenda in the states and in Washington. And that's where you come in. With the media, celebrities, and universities stacked against us, it's the grassroots that will help us win. So please find an Americans for Prosperity chapter in your state and get in the fight. Go to americansforprosperity.org.
There are a few things I appreciate more than John Ashbrook to camera.
Yeah.
Just authoritative as shit.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrific stuff.
You know?
It's got sort of a Cafferty vibe. to
Yeah.
it.
He's like, yeah,
He's like,
you come
arm on the table.
get involved.
Yeah.
I have a lot more to say, but it's probably not appropriate. King of the Hill. King of the Hill is back. We have, I'm the defending champion. I'd forgotten that.
It's been a long reign.
It's been a long reign, but I had I think a first-time player, so we'll see how it holds up, in Michael Steele, former RNC chairman, now MSNBC contributor, which is a perfect fit for our game of former Republicans who have now become left-wing lunatics, which is the basis of King of the Hill. Who am I playing?
You're playing Smug, right?
Yeah. And I believe I'm bringing a first-time contestant.
Oh, we've spread our wings.
Yeah, this is Sarah Longwell.
Wow.
Runs one of the many quote-unquote scam packs of former Republicans in the vein of like a Lincoln Project type of thing.
What do we know anything about this lady beyond the fact that she was a quote-unquote Republican and now a Democrat?
Yeah,
Like
like
she's a pollster, right?
Oh, is that what it is?
think.
Again, that's in quotes. And if I had to guess, like many of these folks, this is satire. She's just in it for the cash, just cleaning out people with her scam pack.
It seemed right. It may have had an affiliation at one point with the Lincoln Project.
I believe
people.
so.
Anyway, okay, that's
And
a great pick.
I'm back
I
to
love new faces.
my historic role as judge and jury,
Well,
which
you-
I'm very excited for.
And you wield power.
I
when
do
you
wield it. I do wield it.
Yeah, no, I think some people are concerned by it because it's such a.
Remember that, Judge?
Yeah, I'm going to
The attacks
remember
have
that.
begun.
Well, it's a wielding.
This judge has the best memory. I think we need to go ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please. Once again, it's time for King of the Hill. In the red corner, fighting out of MSNBC, Michael Steele. And now, in the blue corner, fighting from a desk at the Bulwark Enterprises, and first-time challenger, Sarah Bill Crystal's girl Longwell.
Very good.
That is always
I've
amazing.
missed that.
It's live all the time, folks. It's live all the time.
So, defending champion goes first.
I start.
Yeah.
Okay, so you filter through some things. This was one of my sneaky favorites that I've had in a long time. This is one that I've stumbled across where I was like, jury is going to appreciate this one. Can we put up Exhibit 4, please, Spaghettes? Ha ha! He's talking about Trump. They know he's always been pro-choice. Now that the abortion issue is tearing his ass up,
Oh, man.
he'll revert to his true self. The sad part, pro-lifers / evangelicals, like their fellow politicos inside the GOP, will swallow hard and let him, because they know if they can sucker voters into believing his crap by being quiet, he'll give them the peace they want, a national ban, all caps, which he will.
I am so confused.
This is the best. This
I
is
think
the
he's
best
confused.
part. This is the best part of it.
It's confusing.
The beginning is him essentially trying to play the role as a former Republican, ostensibly a pro-life person, undermining his foothold, Trump's foothold with pro-life America, by saying he's doing what is in his natural instincts, as he says, he's always been pro-choice. Always.
Right.
Always been pro-choice. That's a critique. You could say it. I don't agree with it, and I think the record would show that it's not true, but that's a critique.
But he says he's going to give them a national ban.
And then
so how does that make them suckers?
I don't know.
Because they're getting exactly what they wanted, right?
That's the best part of it.
Like if you're hardcore pro-life, in his mind palace, like you want the national ban, and Donald Trump in his mind palace would deliver that for you, and that somehow makes you a sucker. It's like the logic doesn't follow.
No, it's that's the best part. He takes two different it's underpants numbs.
It's underpants gnomes.
Underpants numbs.
So I'm ready to go. That, again, for folks listening and watching, was still a little bit of a confusing take. I don't need a 1,000-word essay to win this round. Spaghettis, could I please get exhibit number 8? This is referencing Liz Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris. Sarah Longo writes, Liz is right. Be like Liz. So yet again, we're being told by these like former, quote, conservative grifters that the only way to be a conservative is to vote for the Democrat.
If you get a chance, just look up what Liz Cheney said about Kamala Harris in 2020.
It's
when
amazing.
she became the vice presidential candidate. Radical left wing Kamala Harris. That was Liz Cheney's words.
Yeah.
This is tough. Very divergent takes. We've got a 500-word essay where the conclusion doesn't match the introduction. So F grade there in your term paper, Michael Steele. Oh, gosh. I think brevity is the soul of wit. I think Smug wins round 1.
Wow.
That's unbelievable.
Great judge.
I literally cannot believe that
No,
decision.
he's already mad.
That is
Do we have a bailiff to take care of?
Wow.
one of the
Where's
worst.
the bailiff?
One of the worst decisions that's ever been made.
I believe we go to Smug.
I'm more than ready.
I literally cannot believe that just happened.
Order in the court.
Oh, railroaded, ladies and gentlemen. This is a travesty
Once
of
again,
justice.
this is a warning, and your mic will be
or
muted.
what?
We're
Bailiff?
gonna mute the mic.
You're not going to
We're
mute
gonna
the
have
goddamn thing.
we're gonna have debate rules.
You know what? I'm going to start this off. If the bailiff won't do his job, I'd like for him to be part of this one. Can I go to Exhibit 9? This is Sarah Longo referring to a article written by Ashbrook's good friend J-Mart. Dear friend J-Mart, I believe he was your best man in your wedding.
Oh my God!
and-
what an absolute slander!
And J-Mart wrote that the best thing for Republicans is for Trump to lose. The same microwave take that every 4 years we're told the best thing for Republicans is for the Republican to lose. Who would think the press would have that?
Excuse
take?
me, bailiff. Do we have a departure from the rules where you could read the retweet? I thought there was a characterization.
You're
The,
allowed to-
the bailiff must be from California because he's really soft on crime.
I thought we had strict rules here. Apparently, those have gone out the window.
You're allowed to characterize, and
That was not a
to my ears,
characterization.
It
It
was
was a
because
read
that
word
doesn't
for
even,
word.
That doesn't even read the tweet. It was a list of
Okay.
Okay, let's continue.
Please, counsel.
Can I
This
please continue?
distraction.
Thank you, Judge. Sarah Longo writes, this is what I'm talking about. So many Republicans and conservatives want Trump to lose. They believe it's better for the country, the GOP, and conservatism. They should say so out loud and on the record. Who are if the only conservatives who want Trump to lose, quote, conservatives, are the ones running these scam PACs? Like, how is it best for the country to have a communist take over? They have never explained that, and I love that Ashbrook's dear friend J-Mart yet again tries this bullshit take.
Thank you, counsel. On to the next one.
Yeah, he's reasserting his dominance. All right, you like Liz Cheney? I'll give you Exhibit 1. Exhibit 1 is a RT of Republicans against Trump that's quoting Liz Cheney's endorsement of Kamala Harris and says, "Thank you, Liz Cheney, for your fearless leadership in putting our country and our Constitution first, period."
I mean, there's imitation, and there's just trying to use.
Well, I mean,
in the last round, but okay.
round one beat a legitimate
All right,
nuclear bomb by invoking Liz Cheney. So here I am.
Still mad.
I appreciate a contestant in this competition tailoring his game and trying to play to the judge and jury. There's nothing. I'm a vain man. Yeah. And so I appreciate that. It is like really obsequious. Thank you, Liz Cheney. Your fidelity to the Constitution, or whatever the fuck he says.
He's a Republican analyst.
A
too,
Republican analyst. He's a Republican analyst.
Yeah.
He was a former RNC chairman. Mm-hmm. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Really is depressing in this entire game.
It is. This is a depressing game in many ways.
So the Sarah Longwell one, I really like. Can I get that one back up? Spaghettis.
It was Exhibit 9.
Exhibit 9. This is what I'm talking about. This is, yeah, dude, people were saying this in 2016. Like, get a new racket, man. It's been 8 years.
Yep.
We'll win by losing. This has been their philosophy. Brought to you by the Lincoln Project. We win by losing.
Yeah, but it's a lot of words that basically just does the Liz Cheney routine.
It does. I guess, like, all right, like to make a point here, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, probably people who are watching this who are conservatives or Republicans who, like, maybe Donald Trump wasn't your choice, right? Maybe you supported somebody else in the primary or something like that. Let me just be very, very clear that, like, we got to win this election.
Yeah.
And I understand maybe he doesn't support everything you support, or you would have done things differently, or you would like his position to be more staunchly pro-life.
We've all felt like
this.
that. I mean, look, you've taken the ride with us over the last
Right.
4 years. Like you've watched as we've worked through all these things and talked
There's
with
things
you.
you support, there's things you're disappointed by, but that is the nature of politics. You get 80% of what you want, and you put your head down and you do the work and you try to win, because the alternative is horrible.
Yep.
It's so simple, and I don't know why people make it more complicated than that. You get what you can get, as much as you can get.
But in that vein, for a Republican to say thank you for putting your country in the Constitution
Yeah.
of all things, the Constitution first,
Right.
that's a direct affront to the case that you've just made to our listeners.
And I will add, Your Honor, nobody understands the Republican electorate quite like a House candidate who lost a primary.
I agree. I just think in the spirit of this game and why we created it and who these people are, I don't think you could summarize it better than that Sarah Longwell take. And for that reason,
This
it
is
is
a
a two-round
This
knockout.
is a rigged
Huge.
Two-round
Great
knockout.
judge.
This
Great
is
judge.
a rigged game.
You know,
I played Liz Cheney
don't
because
think-
somehow it beat the nuclear bomb, and then the Liz Cheney thing didn't work either.
You know what I think? I think maybe it's recency bias. Like, she's so new to the game. I like the cut of her jib. I like the cut of her
Long
jib.
may be her reign.
Congratulations. Two-round knockout. He's so mad.
Let this go in the annals of all of the decisions that have been made here in some 200 rounds as one of the worst. One of the worst. And I had another nuke that I decided not to play in the third round because of the opening that I got with a judge and the
I
jury.
guess we'll never know.
I shelved
I
Liz
guess-
Cheney
I guess
because I was
we'll
like,
never know.
that's mediocre. Liz Cheney endorsements are mediocre. Nope, it's a winner, beats a nuke.
It did.
And then when we play it, no.
Smug won. Smug is the winner.
I'd like you to like and subscribe and comment on this. Comment on this. Bring this up. Because I've been railroaded, ladies and gentlemen. This is an absolute disaster.
It's my birthday present to him.
Unbelievable. All right. So, look, our final question in addition to a lot of commentary, which I hope is on King of the Hill, is who do you think who's going to win this debate? Give us everything early because we're going to have to see how this thing goes. We want to read it, we want to react to it, and we want to get to it right first thing Thursday when we get back to you. And we will call out the smartest and most accurate stuff because we read them all. And while you're there, hey, maybe buy a hat or something. I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much to our wonderful Judge Michael Duncan, and thank you so much to the minions. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, hit that like, and subscribe. So, until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.